Hello friends, welcome to Vidyalankar in the domain of computer science and engineering. The subdomain is programming. Let me introduce myself. My name is Professor Atul Oak. I am working as assistant professor and I am a PhD research scholar. Let us go to the subject. The subject that I am going to talk is object-oriented programming. This subject is for computer science, engineering and information technology. I'm going to talk about basics of object-oriented programming. The subject is for second year Diploma in Engineering for semester 3. Let's talk about the prerequisite so that you'll be aware how this subject is dependent on the previous subjects and how it is useful for your studies. The subject of object-oriented programming is coming from C programming, which is a prerequisite that you must have studied in semester 2. I hope you are good in C. And after you study object-oriented programming, you will go ahead with further domain, which is an ocean of programming. We call it as Java programming and advanced Java programming. One most commonly used programming language for application development is Java programming. So you are somewhere in the mid of your journey. You studied C programming, you are going to study object-oriented programming and you are going to study further Java programming. So if you know all three programming languages, maybe I can call you as expert in programming. You can do miracles. Going ahead, now let's try to get some glimpse of object-oriented programming because like I suggested that I will be talking about basics. So you will come to know what exactly you are going to study in object-oriented programming. For that, some important matter is already on the board so that we can directly refer it. Let me start from A for Apple because we are talking about computer. Every computer basic if you take, then every computer has four important functional blocks. The very first block is input. We get data from the user or real world. The second block is called as output, where we display our results or data to the real world. The third block is a CPU or central processing unit. It is also called as microprocessor, the brain of your computer, where we actually process the data. And the third block is called as memory, or you can say the storage device for a computer, where we store the data either temporarily or permanently. Temporarily like random access memory, RAM. Now what we do, we identify, if you observe, that these are the four hardware blocks of a computer. So the question is that can your hardware work directly? The answer is no, your hardware cannot work directly. Your hardware always needs some software to work. Question is from where this particular software is going to come? Is it going to come because I am saying, or is it going to come because you are saying? The answer is no, this software we have to create, and that we create using a program. And for writing program, we need a programming language. So there is a definite link to why we study programming and how this word programming is so important. Because any software, when we talk about, it always comes through a program and we develop program using a programming language. Typically, we have two types. One is low level, where we write programs zeros and ones, bits, binary digits. We have high level, where we write the programs in English words like structured programming you have studied. C is an example of structured programming or procedural programming. And the programming that you are going to study, which is object-oriented programming. So the mapping is very clear. The subject object-oriented programming exactly fits here. So basically it's a high-level programming and it comes under software development for high-level programming, and it is little different from structured programming. Those differences also you will study. The common examples of object-oriented programming is C++, the one you are going to study, and of course Java. I listed the Java and advanced Java will be your future after you complete OOPM. Now question is how this object-oriented programming is important and why I say that it is a prerequisite. The prerequisite is C programming. Answer is recollect your good old days of semester 2 diploma, C programming. I think you are familiar with this particular code because this code you must have developed, you must have practiced during C programming. This is a small code which indicates a concept called structure. Now everybody knows what is a structure. Structure is basically a variable we use to store record type of applications. Like in this program, if you observe carefully, I am creating a structure called book, and in that I am creating three variables. Integer, which stores number of pages in the book, the p price, which is a float data type, price of the book, and name or title of the book, which is a character array. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to create a structure which will store record of books in terms of number of pages, of course int, price, of course float, and name, of course title, which is a character array. And I'm creating a structure variable. This is basically called as array of structure, if you remember C programming. And such 100 books I'm going to maintain. So I'll call B0 is a first book with some number of pages, with some price, with some title, like programming in C. Or B1, of course it is called indexing if you recollect arrays during C programming. So B1 will be my second book with some number of pages, with some price and with some title, and like that I will store 100 books. So this you already know, because this way you can store employee records, patient's record, book record like I said, or maybe staff record or student's record. There are n number of applications you can develop using structure concept in C. But now what is the problem of this particular structure? Because after structure what comes is a new concept which is called class. So the first thing that you will be studying in object-oriented programming is a concept called class. The answer is, if you see this structure very carefully, you will agree that when we write a main function, because you already know how to code main, C programming is done. So if I write main function, then in that this all data will be visible. So when we talk about a structure, we talk about a global data. Global means it is visible everywhere. That is the meaning of global data. And the second point that you observe carefully is that my data and my code, it is separate in C programming. Now if you move from structure to a concept called class, which is the first concept we will be studying in object-oriented programming, then what we observe is that the look of the class is something similar to a structure. For your clarity, I have taken the same example, a book record using structure and a book record using a class. But the big difference is that if you observe carefully, in this I am only putting data. My code is not visible, it is in the main. But here you will find along with my data, same data, number of pages which is an integer, price of the book which is a float, name or title of the book which is a character array. Along with that I am also putting function, if you see. So I am trying to put data and function together. This is called encapsulation. This is a word. Now this is one important feature in object-oriented programming. So we are trying to put together our data and our code as one group. So this process is called encapsulation, which is missing in case of structure. So like that there are many new concepts we will be studying in object-oriented programming. I just listed one, that is encapsulation. Like that you have many. You have something called as an object. Class, I already said, in fact we are talking about it, so I'll list it, better our list will be complete. We have something called inheritance. We have polymorphism. We have a concept called message passing. These all concepts are newly added in object-oriented programming, and your language becomes much better, much reliable. Because if you are alert, you must agree that I have compared structure with a class, which is one important concept in object-oriented programming. Like that, you can go for object, you have in encapsulation, you have inheritance, polymorphism, message passing, and this forms syllabus of your OOPM, that is object-oriented programming. So every characteristic of your object-oriented programming or method will be one important module or chapter in OOPM. This is very important subject because I already said that mapping is very clear. On this particular subject, our two new subjects you will be studying further, that is Java programming and advanced Java programming. So I recommend you that for detailed learning of this subject, for better learning of this subject, to get good grips on the subject, good clarity of the concept, do join Vidyalankar, because we have all expert faculties which are good in programming and we can make you better for your future. Thank you very much.